So I want to touch today about what makes us human, and of course, what makes us human is creativity. We are creating all the time, and that's part of what we are doing here, but you know, every day I'm asking myself, what did I create today? Do I have some new idea? So I want to share with you 2 new ideas of today, just as the beginning of this talk about creativity. Little ideas, but I think creative. So one idea is that I had today is about frontiers. I used to think about frontiers in the last 10 years as a journal. I realized this morning that it's a complete mistake. It's not a journal, it's a phenomena. It's not only a phenomena, it's an optimistic phenomena. It's not only an optimistic phenomena, it's an optimistic phenomena that penetrated to me, and I became optimistic as part of this optimism of this team that generated this optimism. So it's not a journal, it's an optimistic phenomena. I realize it today. I don't think about journal anymore, I think about optimistic phenomena. That's one aspect of what happened to me today as a human, what makes me human. The other thing I thought about is Henry, who I met 27 years ago as a postdoc at the NIH. Very fast I realized that this is an innovative personality, and we are friends since then. But then I realized yesterday that I should think about Henry and later on Camila, coming together in the last 15 years, as an exponential couple. It's not only exponential that they are talking about this exponent, but as a couple, they generate some exponentials, meaning in the last 10 years, Blue Brain Project, Human Brain Project, Frontiers, Innate, Olive, Charlotte, and more are coming. This is very exponential. So that's what makes us human, creativity. So I'll try to speculate about what makes us creative, because basically we are basically the only creature that makes these amazing creative entities all the time, constantly. Just as an example, as you all know, in the last 30 or so years, 1,000 years, or a little bit more, art has been created, this beautiful, amazing thing that I will show a little bit later because I can't resist art. But other things that happen very, very exponentially, again, written language, science, computers, iPhones, Blue Brain, Frontiers, this meeting, all very creative, all very new. It's happening all the time. Even when I talk with somebody, I'm saying new things. I hope I don't repeat myself. I can surprise my wife sometimes, so I must be creative. Otherwise, I'm not myself anymore. So what enables this? This is, of course, speculative. We don't really understand what makes human creative, so I want to share with you 5 ideas that I took from different places. Some of that are my own research, but some of them just from neuroscience. But just to say that we are not the only creative creatures in the world, so there is this female chimpanzee, Congo, who is considered to be so this is the painting of Congo. She painted a lot. She lived 10 years, as you see. And she sold very well, you know. In some of the auctions in London, she sold much better, actually, than some of the most important painters of the day. So she liked to paint, and she is the Cézanne of the ape world, as she's called, Congo. But she never did something like that, of course. So this is very specific to the human capabilities, is to draw in the oldest cave that we found until today, these horses and bison and so forth, and even seeing already 30,000 years ago this dynamics of movement, already seeing some type of video art then. And really you should go to visit because it's not far from Genève, 4 hours drive, even less, and you are in Chauvet. And you know, Lascaux and other caves, Altamira in north of France, everything happened about 30,000 years ago. What happened in the brain that suddenly we could create such things? What is unique about the human brain? And we also created, of course, at about the same time, all these amazing things. So this, you know, Aphroditas, beautiful, beautiful, really sculptures, very well known, the Lion Man from Ivory in Germany. This is considered to be the most ancient sculpture, still debatable whether it's created by nature or by human, because this was discovered in Bikat Ram, which is in the Golan Heights in Israel today. And this is about 200,000 years old, so it is much, much older than the rest. And of course, we can do these things today much later. So what makes humans so creative? So that's the question. So I want to convince you, and I'm sure you thought about it, some of you, that creativity is a state of the brain. It's a specific state of the brain that you can assign as a creative state. So I want to discuss what is the state of the brain in a second. So I'm saying that any cognitive capacity, whatever you do, I'm talking now, I'm feeling love, I'm longing, I'm happy, I'm worried about my talk, all these are states of my brain states. And so the question is, what happens in the brain of a human that enables states that are creative? And states like this do not apparently exist in other animals. What is unique in our brain that enables this variety of states that many of them are creative? And then I'll give you some 5 speculations about what in the human brain enables this variety of states that perhaps and probably in other animals does not exist. So I want to explain for you, those who do not understand maybe directly what is the notion of a brain state. I want to show you a very specific example of a state of the brain, in this case of a Parkinsonian state. So Parkinson is a state of the brain. So this is Hagai Bergman, who was the first actually to record from the basal ganglia, which is a deep region in the brain, from multiple electrodes. I'm just showing you 3 recordings from 3 electrodes in this particular region. And you can see one cell firing its own spikes. So if I would connect it to a loudspeaker, it will do ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, stop, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, stop. These are the spiking activity, the electrical activity of this particular cell. Another cell is firing more vigorously. A third cell is firing less vigorously. All of them firing this prototypical signal spike. So these are just 3 examples of many, many cells, about 1 million cells in this region, that fire like this when you don't have Parkinson. So this is a state of the brain. It is an asynchronic state of the brain that fires each cell. It has its own music, so to speak. But when you are Parkinsonian, when the brain gets into a state of Parkinson, this is what happens in this region, particular region, recorded in the same region of a Parkinsonian patient. In this case, it's a Parkinsonian monkey. You can see that the state of the brain, the state of the network, dynamically shifts into this state. So in this state, you can see that the cells tend to fire in bursts. So if I record it, it will look like ta-ta-ta-ta, stop, ta-ta-ta-ta, stop. A burst of spikes, stop. A burst of spikes, stop, in this particular cell, but also the other cells that are recorded at the same time, you can see that they tend to fire in the same pattern. So these cells become synchronized and fire in oscillations. This is a brain state, and the manifestation of this state is a Parkinsonian state. So you are starting to tremor and so forth. So this is one example, extreme example of a state, but anything that you do is a state. You dream, deep dream, sleep dream, all of them are different brain states. So I'm claiming that creativity is a state or many states of many types of creativity. So just to show you something very dramatic that Hagai and others, just to show that you can interfere with the state. You can interfere with the state from the outside, change the state of the brain, brings the patient back to non-Parkinsonian state. So the technique today is to handle the situation of Parkinsonian is to implant an electrode. Actually, today plant more than 1 electrode into this particular deep region that generates this network, that generates this erroneous code, erroneous state, which we call Parkinsonian. You can start to inject current through a generator, pulses of current. You can adapt the frequency and the intensity of these pulses. So it's a pacemaker of the brain. You pacemake the brain in this particular region. And amazingly, this works very well. So you can see a Parkinsonian patient here. He is in the state of Parkinson, so his brain is now generating this rhythmic, synchronized activity that I just showed you. You don't need to see it much because I'm sure you saw Parkinsonian patients. But now you can do this penetration of electrode. It's called deep brain stimulation. You can stimulate this region by deep brain stimulation with these implanted electrodes, and you can shift the state of this Parkinsonian patient who cannot do, actually for me, when I'm getting in the morning to make sure that I'm not Parkinsonian, I'm doing that. A Parkinsonian patient cannot do that in different rhythms because the rhythm is dictated by the state of this synchronized activity that I showed you before. So this patient cannot do synchronized activity as he wishes. But then you do this you implement the electrodes, and you see this same patient now getting deep brain stimulation. You completely change the state of this person. He's almost back to normal. As you will see in a second, he can do this. So you would say that he's not Parkinsonian. It's not completely true. Of course, he is Parkinsonian because when you turn on the activity, but he can do things that Parkinsonian patient cannot do. This was just to show you states of the brain, and you can shift one state from one to the other. And I'm claiming that creativity is a state that you want to shift into, and the question is how to shift into a creative state that will come at the end. So what is unique about our human brain that makes these states of creativity? So it's not the size of the brain, because you can see that Einstein's brain is very, very small. I can assure you that I would measure all your brain, it will be more than 1.2 kilogram, for sure, but certainly more than Anatole France, who was a Nobel Prize laureate. So these two people got Nobel Prize with a very small brain. So it's not the size of your brain that makes you creative. It's not. So what could it be? One clear thing that is very unique to human is the huge number of nerve cells, neurons that we have in our brain. So there are now new techniques to count the number of cells in a brain of different animals, mammals in this case, this monkey and another monkey, dogs, cats, whales, whatever you want. We have now the numbers of cells in brain of different animals. And you can see that in human here, it's a big brain, but not only the fact that it's big, because it's not the size, as I said, but it's the number of elements that are very, very huge number, very, very unique number we have. It's close to 100 billion, 10 to the power of 11 nerve cells. This certainly enables states of brain, huge amount of states of brain, because a state of a brain, after all, is a network activity. And if you have many, many combinatorial of network activity, you could have, in principle, many states. If you had only 2 nerve cells in your brain, it could be either this fire or this fire, no fire or 2 firing. You could have only 4 states. If you have many, many elements, you have many possible states. It's true that we are not the champions in number of cells. There are whales with larger number of cells today, so we are not the biggest number of cells. I cannot be proud of my number of cells because there are whales that have more cells than I, actually double. But the brain is actually 4 times than mine. So per brain volume, we have the largest number of microchips per volume is in our brain, yes? So that's certainly part of what makes us human or what makes us creative, because as I said, you need many states, and many states comes with many elements, in principle at least. That's one possibility or one idea about the fact that we have huge number of neurons, and this huge number of humans enable huge number of states in our brain. Another fact, anatomical fact, is the fact that our brain is intensely connected between regions. So this is a technology that enables us, DTI it is called, the technology that enable us to measure connectivity, white matter, wiring connectivity between one region to another region, between one region to another region. It's not blue in the brain, so this is just highlight in the computer, but this is a way to show that this region is connected heavily to this region and this region to this region and so forth. And if you look at the human brain, clearly it's a very intense connected volume between regions. Why is it so important? Because let's say that I want to create a concept, let's say a glass. I'm saying now a glass, okay? So for you and for us, glass means actually several things. It means a shape of a glass. There is a shape of a glass. We agree that this is a glass. But the glass, so this is visual information, the shape of the glass. But also the glass has other sensory modality meanings. For example, glass gives you water, so it's connected to taste. And the glass has a texture, so it's connected to touch. So when I'm saying glass, the capability to say a glass, in my case, means that in my brain I connected different aspects that sits in different regions. Okay, so the visual region is here, the touch region is here, the smell region is here, in order to generate a concept that unite different modalities, I need these regions to be connected. Otherwise, I will have a touch glass, a visual glass, a smell glass, a taste glass, which are not the same thing. So I'm claiming the language is enabled The mere fact that I have language is enabled by connectivity in the brain. There is, by the way, a beautiful experiment with chimpanzees. When you teach a chimpanzee with a closed eye to learn to, let's say, touch a circle and get water reward within many other structures. So very fast, with closed eyes, the chimpanzee learns that when she or he touches the circle or the sphere, he gets water. But when you open the eyes of the chimpanzee, he needs to learn again, visually, that this thing is the thing that gave him or her when he touches the water. So in the case of chimpanzee, unlike you, I'm sure that if you will know, if I'll close your eyes and you will touch a sphere, you will generate an image of a sphere, although you don't see it. The monkey cannot do it, so he cannot speak. He cannot generate a concept of a sphere or of a glass. So highly connected brain is certainly good for generating states of the brain that connect regions together and generate a concept, an idea. Language is certainly a very creative thing that we generated. Henry Markham and his team in the Blue Brain Project also look very intensely, I'm sure Henry will talk a little bit about that, about local circuits. So I'm now looking at local circuitry. This is the Blue Brain Project, and we are looking in the Brain Project, I'm also part of it, on the connectivity between cells. I'm not now talking about connectivity between regions, but between particular cells. And I will show you that in human, the connectivity between cells is much more intense, maybe double more intense per cell relative, let's say, to monkey or to mouse. So first of all, there are two interesting issues. We are developing very slow, and I think this slowness is very important for creativity. You don't want to close, so to speak, the development, the main development of the brain after 3 months. In order to adapt to a very sophisticated and demanding environment, you need a slow development of the brain. And you know there are genes that slow down the development of a brain, of human brain. Other animals develop faster, like chimpanzee, become mature in many ways after 9 months. We are not. And you can see that the nervous system, our nervous system, is very sparse and not highly connected in the cortex at this 1-month-old child, but very connected and much more elaborated at this age. And the work of anatomists show that per cells, if you ask how many connections, how many synapses one neurons in the cortex of human receive, relative to, let's say, a rat or mouse, so the black is for human, you can see that human receive about 30,000 synapses per one cell. So one microchip is connected to 30,000 other microchip or disorder, and it's about half the case in rodents. So this local connectivity enables, again, a lot of interactions and a lot of states, local states, which are really where the creativity hides. Local activity in this million cells generate Parkinson. Local activity in this million cell generate E equal mc square in the case of brains of Einstein. Finally, my last point is this, I think, interesting point, is the fact that nerve cells, when you record from neurons, this is a neuron, this is an electrode here penetrated to a neuron, and this happens in all cells that we record from, both monkeys and rats and so forth. There is this noisiness, this stochasticity of the electrical activity without any stimulation. So nerve cells are noisy element. This is about 2 millivolts. It's a big noise. It's unlike the computer where you try to downscale the noise of the chip in order to make it reliable. Neurons are absolutely not reliable. There is a beautiful work coming from the lab of Henry about the non-reliability, the importance of non-reliability on information transmission in the nervous system. But it is important to remember that neurons, unlike the computer microchips, are very noisy. This means that there will be jitter in the output, even if you will give the same input, even if I will see the same glass or the same face, let's say, of Henry again and again, the output of the network is not the same, just because the underlying mechanism is noisy. So the spike will start to jitter, the output will jitter because the underlying mechanism is noisy. I think this noise is essential for creativity. A deterministic system like a computer is not very creative, but a network like us that always move a little bit, and you can also ask questions about when is this creative happens. you can see that people that are creative, and there are a lot of books about that, are creating always when they have a little bit of fever, and fever increases this noise significantly, because these are proteins and channels. But of course the question is, this is noise also in animals, so why does monkeys also have noise in the neurons and they are not as creative as us? So I'm claiming, and that's exactly what we are doing now, we are now checking the noisiness of human neurons. So we have tissue, fresh tissue from hospitals, the neurons are alive, and we are now characterizing the noisiness of neurons of humans, and we are starting to get interesting results that the noisiness in terms of Fourier composition of the noise is different in humans than in all other animals. And I think that's part of our capability to shift from states, because this noise suddenly, by mistake, by association, brings me to a state that is called creative. Okay, so what can we do to become more creative? We can do many things, and I don't want to elaborate too much, because eventually we want all to be Einstein or Da Vinci's, isn't it? And so how do we become Da Vinci's or Einstein? So we can do many things. We can, for example, do that. We can do what happened here, and I should show you this because that's quite amazing. So this is a drawing of a horse by Leonardo da Vinci. This is a drawing of a horse by Nadia, who actually just died, an autistic, savant autistic girl who died at the age of 46 a few months ago. And she started from the age of 5 to draw these horses, absolutely shocking horses. This means that she has this state, the savant state in her particular brain enables her to draw these beautiful horses. Are we all savant? Hidden savant? Apparently, not only hidden savant, and there are examples, by the way, of people that get some dementia and suddenly they become artistic and suddenly they do things that they never did before. Becoming sick, they do new things. That means that there were these capabilities buried in their head, but it was never expressed itself. So we can express it by stimulation. So this is Oliver Sacks receiving TMS, so transcranial magnetic stimulation to his brain, becoming much better artist than he was before. He was a terrible artist, like by the way, myself, terrible artist, I cannot copy a cat. But after doing that, his cat became better. This is not his own drawings, but you see this is before the TMS, during the, sorry. So this is before the TMS, and then there was this stimulation to the frontal cortex for a given period of time for two subjects here. You can see an improvement of their artistic capability to draw using this visual motor. So this is copying of something, and after some time you become again a better artist, so to speak. So you can activate particular region of your brain and become better, in some sense. It's not very surprising, but it is surprising that it's successful. It's debatable, this project, but still there are several people in the world that are trying to stimulate your brain so that you will become much better. But I think the other way to do it to enhance creativity and become Da Vinci is, first of all, to stop with all these old dichotomies, which we'll discuss in a second, because we think about ourselves as scientists or artists, and that's it. But we are not. We are Da Vinci's intrinsically. Our states could be of a Da Vinci state, but we don't express it. So I think we should really connect things and destroy these old dichotomies and really connect things, especially for me, science and art. Okay, so what I want really is to create little Da Vinci's from all of us, and the next generation should certainly be much more creative than we are, and this is the Da Vinci generation. The other thing that to do as part of this Da Vinci is to generate museums of art and science, which I called Museum of Art. So I have already the name for the museum, Mars, Museum of Art and Science. I think Frontiers should generate Museum for Art and Science, because then the child will go and will see Einstein here and Picasso there, both, by the way, at the same time, generate space-time concept. This is the special relativity in 1905. This is the Demoiselle d'Avignon, which is really space-time, breaking the space and time, cubism in the same time. But why should the child go to a science museum and only see Einstein, and then to art museum and only see Picasso? I don't understand it. He should be here there and see the two of them. Then he will become Da Vinci. That's my idea about Frontiers' contribution to Da Vinci. By the way, I recommended this highly interesting book about Einstein and Picasso generating same concept at the same time, space-time. So how do we become Da Vinci's? I think the force of Frontiers is towards this direction. We thought about, in the beginning, in the swimming pool, already in the swimming pool that Henry talked about. I wasn't here because of the delay of the flight. We already spoke about climbing the tiers. Now, today, we have 2 tiers in Frontiers, but we should have 4 tiers in Frontiers. So here is my suggestion to enhancing creativity. We want a 3rd tier, Frontiers in Humanities, Frontiers in Sciences, Frontiers in Emotions, Frontiers in Creativity. We want also 4th tier, Frontiers in Human Knowledge, but we also want the biggest tier, Frontiers. Thank you very much.